Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're creating a completely covered, high-quality visual summary of a truly fascinating ancient text, one that constructs a majestic, highly structured, and honestly, sometimes terrifying universe. We're going to visually map out this entire cosmology, examining a world that's built literally like a pot and its cover, and illuminated by a primordial light so powerful it originally let you see from one end of the world to the exact opposite side.
So here is our roadmap for the spatial journey. First, we'll look at the 10 creations. Second, ascending the heavens. Third, descending the earths. Fourth, the vast cosmic geography. And finally, number 5, the center of creation.
All right, part 1, the 10 creations of day 1. Before we can stack the layers of reality, we really have to look at the foundation, right? The primordial building blocks that had to be brought forth on the very first day. God produced exactly these 10 things. Now, what's so fascinating here is that even though the heavens and the earth consist of totally different elements, they were created together as a single functional unit. The text actually describes them as being like a pot and its cover. The heavens were fashioned from the light of God's garment, and the earth was formed from the snow under the divine throne.
You know, what's really interesting here is the incredibly vivid, almost surreal nature of these early raw materials. We aren't just talking about abstract concepts of empty space. Toho is described as a literal green band encompassing the whole world that actually dispenses darkness. And Bahu? Well, those are actual physical stones sitting down in the abyss, acting as the producers of the waters.
And this brilliantly illustrates the huge distinction between the celestial bodies we know today and the original creation. See, the light created at the very beginning is not the same as the light emitted by our sun, moon, and stars. Those didn't even show up until the 4th day. The light of the first day was so intensely powerful it would have allowed a person to just glance and see the world from one end all the way to the other. But, anticipating the wickedness of sinful generations like the folks at the Tower of Babel, God actually concealed this pristine light, saving it exclusively for the pious in the world to come.
Moving on to part 2, ascending the 7 heavens. Let's look up. Having established those building blocks, let's shift our gaze upward and see how this universe builds vertically. There are 7 distinct heavens, and each serves a highly specific purpose. Notice the intense contrast as we rise. We move from the first heaven, which is really just a mundane cover for the light during the night. Up in the third, we find the manna reserved for the pious. In the fourth, there's a perfect celestial Jerusalem and a temple where the Archangel Michael ministers as high priest. But then, we hit the 6th heaven, before eventually reaching the pure divine beauty of the 7th heaven, which holds right, justice, mercy, the souls of unborn generations, and the divine throne itself.
But hold on, let's pause on that 6th heaven for a second, because it is an uncanny, incredibly dangerous place. It's actually where most of the trials and visitations ordained for Earth originate. It literally has lofts full of noxious dew, magazines stocked with storms, and cellars holding reserves of smoke, all blocked off by doors of fire. These pernicious contents were actually defiling the heavens. In fact, the text tells us the pious King David prayed to God to purge his exalted dwelling of these things pregnant with evil. Only after that prayer were they removed and cast down to the earth.
Now for part 3, descending the 7 earths.
Having scaled the absolute highest heights of the heavens, we're going to reverse direction and plunge straight downward, because just as there are 7 heavens, there are 7 earths stacked directly below us. We descend past our earth, plunging all the way into the terrifying depths of Arka, the 5th earth. That's where Gehenna is, and where the souls of the wicked are guarded by the angels of destruction. As we climb back up, we pass Haraba, surprisingly a place of brooks and streams despite its name meaning the dry. Then we hit Yabasha, and finally up through Tabel, before popping back out at our own earth at the very top, which is called Heled.
The layer, sitting just right below our own earth, is Tebel. This is the first mainland inhabited by living creatures, and oh boy, does it show off the incredibly imaginative zoology of this ancient text. Tebel is populated by exactly 365 species completely unlike anything on our planet. We are talking about chimera-like creatures, human heads set on the bodies of lions, serpents, or oxen, or the other way around, human bodies topped with animal heads.
And right alongside those hybrids, Tebel is inhabited by human beings with 2 heads, 4 hands, and 4 feet. Essentially, all their organs are doubled except the trunk. Now, they are noted for their great piety, but it's rather amusing to picture them. The text specifically notes that the different parts of these double persons often violently bicker with themselves over who gets the biggest and best portions of food and drink. Imagine having a fistfight with your own second head over a piece of bread.
Moving right along to part 4, the vast cosmic geography.
So we've explored the vertical axis of the heavens and earths. Now let's sweep across the horizontal compass points. The crucial takeaway here is the absolute staggering scale of this universe. In this cosmology, time is distance. It takes exactly 500 years to walk from the earth to the heavens. It takes another 500 years to walk from one end of a heaven to the other, or from one heaven up to the next. And it takes that exact same 500-year span just to travel from the east to the west, or across the demonic wastelands of the north.
Yet, despite these mind-bending 500-year walking distances across 196,000 worlds, only a tiny fraction of this vast space is actually populated. Exactly 1/3 of the world is inhabited by living things. The remaining 2/3 are equally divided into endless expanses of water and entirely barren, waste desert land.
The extreme climates of the 4 compass points are carefully geographically balanced. To the east is paradise. To the west is the ocean, dotted with islands and steppes full of scorpions. To the north is the dwelling place of devils and demons, complete with hellfire, snow, and smoke. And to the south is the forge of blasts and hurricanes, bringing intense heat. In fact, the only reason the world isn't totally consumed by this southern fury is the angel Ben Nez, who literally holds back the furious south wind with his pinions, while the north wind helps temper the heat.
Now, while heaven and earth touch in the east, west, and south, the north was intentionally left unfinished. And this is brilliant. It was a theological trap built directly into the cosmos itself. If any man ever arose claiming to be a god, he could simply be told, "Oh yeah, go complete the unfinished north." When he inevitably failed, he'd be instantly exposed and convicted as a total fraud.
And finally, Part 5, the center of creation.
We've traveled to the furthest edges of the cosmos, but now we have to dramatically zoom in to the exact focal point where the construction of all this reality actually began. See, the Earth didn't build from the outside in. It grew from the exact center outward. Follow this compounding rhythm as we zoom in, like a massive Russian nesting doll. Past the surface of the Earth, into the Holy Land. Then pinpoint Jerusalem at its center. In the center of the city sits the temple. In the sanctuary is the Hekal. In the center of the Hekal is the Holy Ark. And sitting directly beneath that is the foundation stone itself.
This stone is the Eben Shetiyah. It is the absolute anchor of existence. Everything in this massive architectural framework we've just mapped out radiates outward from this singular, powerful point of origin. It was from this very stone that the first ray of primordial light issued forth, piercing the Holy Land, and from there illuminating the entirety of the newly constructed Earth.
But, as you can imagine, this creation couldn't take place until order was imposed on the chaos. This dramatic command, "Retire," was given by God to banish the existing ruler of the dark. By doing this, light was commanded to rule the sky and darkness was relegated to rule the earth. God's immense power was displayed just as much in the strict limitations he imposed as in the physical things he actually created.
And honestly, limitation was desperately needed. The text reveals a startling image. Upon being created, the heavens and the earth stretched themselves out in length and breadth, actively aspiring to infinitude. They wanted to keep growing endlessly. It actually required the spoken word of God to call a hard halt to their encroachments and establish the very physical borders of reality.
And that brings us to a profound realization to wrap things up. In this ancient blueprint, boundaries weren't just arbitrary lines on a map. They were the essential constraints that made existence possible. As we look back at this fascinating, highly structured ancient framework, it leaves us with a compelling question for our modern minds. The universe wanted to expand infinitely, but hard stops were imposed. Without limits, without borders and structure to contain the chaos, could anything meaningful truly exist at all? Something to think about.